it's all based on the idea that the drugs are somehow rectifying some underlying problem. And until we understand that they're not doing that, or that we've got no evidence that they're doing that, we don't really know how to interpret the evidence we've got. So, for example, if you give children a sedative drug like an antipsychotic and measure their mania scores will go down a bit. They will be less hyperactive, less irritable, and they'll sleep more. That doesn't mean that we've cured anything or done anything very useful. What we've done is we've sedated those children. And until we understand what the drugs we give to people are doing, we don't know how to interpret the evidence. That's my position on it.
But you are a psychiatrist yourself, and you prescribe drugs, but you're very critical to what they do to us.
I do.
How does this go together?
I prescribe some drugs in some situations, and when someone is very psychotic, I think that there are some drugs that can help people. That I think that being a bit sedated and having your thought processes and emotions suppressed a bit when you're very psychotic can be useful. It's better to be able to get through that without drugs, but some people can't. So in those situations, I think that some drugs are useful. The vast majority of situations in which people are prescribed drugs, like for depression or bipolar disorder or many cases of ADHD, I don't think they're particularly useful.
Why not? Because people talk about fantastic results sometimes.
But people have always talked about fantastic results with all sorts of therapies that we now know were completely useless and often quite dangerous. So you have to do proper studies, and what the proper studies show, as you probably know, is that drugs like antidepressants are only very minimally different from a placebo. And that minimal difference, in my opinion, is because they are psychoactive, mind-altering drugs. They make people feel different, they suppress their emotions a bit. So that's what we're doing to people. That's why we need to understand what the drugs are that we're using, what sort of effects do they have, what sort of mind-altering, behaviour-altering effects do they produce. And I think that the effects that, say, antidepressants produce are just not useful. I don't see why being a little bit suppressed emotionally is going to help someone and feeling a bit groggy and having your libido taken away. I don't see why that's going to help someone who's depressed. In fact, I think it's going to make it more difficult for them to recover in the long term, at least. It's not a question of it being right or wrong, it's a question of understanding what we're doing. And what I'm saying is we really have no evidence that these drugs are curing depression. I think it's particularly worrying in children. You know, their brain is developing, their brain is more susceptible to the effects of drugs and chemicals, we know that. They get more severe side effects from antipsychotics, for example, more severe physical side effects and neurological side effects. So I think it's worrying from that point of view. I think it's also very worrying because we're giving children the message that they need a chemical crutch, that they can't manage to learn to control their behaviour and their emotions themselves. And of course, that is one of the prime tasks of growing up, is to learn how to manage your emotions and how to control your behaviour. And I don't think we're doing children any favours by telling them they need a chemical to help them do that. I think we've got to find other ways of helping them to do that. It's easy to think that these complex problems are an individual brain disease that you can rectify with a drug. It's simple, no one has to think too much about the real cause of these problems. You don't have to think about what sort of social measures you need to help people lead better and more fulfilling lives. It's a quick fix, and it's appealing to all sorts of people. It's appealing sometimes to the patients themselves because they desperately want things to be better. It can be appealing to parents, and of course it's appealing to politicians because it means that they don't have to think about the sort of society we live in and how that might be affecting people. It's much easier just to tell people they're sick and they need to take a pill. I think you need to think about the individual level and the social level. At a social level, we need to ask why people find modern life difficult. I think we need to build up communities because people are very isolated. We need to build up communities. We need to provide more employment that's going to give people an opportunity to lead a fulfilling and satisfying life and provide for themselves and their families. and we need more community groups, more opportunities for people to come together and be able to support each other. So that's the community level. At the individual level, it depends on the individual's problems. I don't think you can prescribe any solution, any sort of overall solution. So, you know, it depends what the problem is of the individual presenting with depression, for example. Is it because of their work situation, their family situation? Why are they depressed? That's what we need to be asking. Or why is this child behaving in the way that they're behaving? And we need to address the reasons and the causes, and they will be different in each case. I think there's a role for therapy, for support, if a family's having difficulty with managing a child's behaviour, if an adult is having difficulty negotiating life, finding ways to deal with difficulties they've had. I think therapy can be helpful to support people and help them to find their own solutions. But ultimately, I think that's what we have to do. We have to help people find their own solutions, their own ways of managing their difficulties, all the various difficulties that people are beset with.